welcome to this exciting new episode of Sattology, Debunking Mythology. Sat means truth, Logos means a study or science, Sattology means a science of truth or study of truth. And then we have the opposite of that is mythology, which is made of Sanskrit root word known as myth. In Devanagari, it is written ma, chota e ki matra, and tha, myth. And they combined with logos, which is also study. So study of fake, lie, or imagination is mythology. Somehow the mythology came to be known as the actual history of the world. That's a connotation, not the denotation. Especially when we talk about words. Sanskrit is a very scientific language, and where every word you only have denotations. And the way it is used can make a connotation also in a hasya ras, but generally it is not. And even the jokes are very sophisticated in Sanskrit language. Now, coming to the today's show, we are talking about something very much missing in this world today. When we talk about values, when we talk about the culture, the one thing that binds the values and the culture is ethics. The business is done on ethics, and the social exchange is done on ethics, and also the all relationships are built on ethics. If there is no ethical boundaries, then people will fight, which happens most of the times in Kali Yuga, which is an age of quarrel and hypocrisy. So without delay, we have very, very, very good friend and also an author, and also she's a speaker at many public forums. Without delay, let us welcome Deepali Patwadkar.
Namaskar. Namaste, Adityaji. Namaste. It's really good to be back on Sattology. Thank you.
You're very welcome. So Deepaliji, what is your reason why you chose this topic today?
This is a very intriguing topic. And the best part about it is, when one speaks of ethics, it is so boring. Yeah. And when we look at the way ethics are taught in the Indian context, they make it so lovely through stories and all. And that is why I thought, I should speak about this.
No, it's a very good topic, because it is one thing which is missing in this world. And I also thought you want to give a message to the world that how ethics bind our society. Isn't that true?
Absolutely. So well put, Adityaji. Because without ethics, how can you trust anybody? Right. And that is the only way the society will run.
So I know you have made some slides on it. If you can share, we'll keep talking in the middle.
Absolutely.
So
let me do that.
Ethics is something we want to encourage, and people want to set a golden standard of ethics also. And the Maryada Purushottam, when we say,
Ram.
So which is the topmost personality of Maryada. Maryada also is the Hindi meaning of ethics? Boundaries? Or is it not? Is a different word for Maryada? English. Hindi word for ethics will be what? Maryada.
Maryada, Niti. And Niti.
Niti and policy. And Niti is policy, but Maryada Purushottam. I mean, who can set the boundaries? Who can set the boundaries better than Sri Ram?
Yeah. Never crossing those.
Please continue. Yes.
Yeah. So looking at ethics from the Indian perspective, and in this, the first thing that we should look at is the. When we speak about the Indian perspective, the first thing we encounter is this word Manav Dharma. And it's interesting because the Indian thought, it doesn't speak about one nation, it doesn't speak about one kind of people, it doesn't speak about one gender of people, but it speaks for the whole humanity. And that is why it says this is Manav Dharma. Manav is human. So human Dharma is, you can say, religion. So human religion, it speaks about human religion. And in that, there is also a science of human religion. So Manav Dharma Shastra is, maybe you can say it is humanities. And there is only one sutra, there is only one law, you can say, which applies to every human being. And that law is given by Manu. And that law says that every person, so every person, every human being, okay, so every human being should follow these four things, which is ahimsa, asatya, asteya, shaucha, and indriya nigraha. So this is basically ahimsa is non-violence, and non-violence on all the levels, non-violence in your deeds, non-violence in your words, and non-violence in your thoughts as well. So ahimsa is non-violence at all these three levels. And then there is truthfulness, so speaking the truth. But the Indian literature, the Indian thought, it gives a very beautiful uh, definition for being truthful. When they say, you should speak truth, they say it should be, satyam briyat priyam briyat. So you should speak the truth, which is also sweet to the listener, and it should be hitakarak. It should be good for the listener, it should be good for the society. So it whatever you say, whatever you do, it has to have all these three parameters. It should be truth, it should be sweet to hear, and it should be for the good. If in any of these parameters it doesn't it doesn't fall, then you better not say anything, just keep mum. So that's about, like, being truthful. And then there is asteya, which is not not stocking upon things, keeping only as much as you need. That is a parigraha actually, but we can include that as well over here. And asteya would mean not stealing. So don't take anything which doesn't belong to you. It is not just from other people, but it is also from other animals. So, like, the way in today's world we go about using fur uh, clothes or something like that, you are actually stealing from animals, so that shouldn't be done. So asteya. And then there is shauch, which is purity, in again purity of the body and purity of the mind. And then there is indriya nigraha, which is control on all your senses. So control on your eating, control on your leisure, all of those things. So when Manu is speaking about Manava Dharma, Manu is speaking about being human, he says a human has, every person should follow all these standards. And that is what you can say is the basic rule where we start talking about ethics.
So true. This is, and when people say Manu Samhita is against any particular varna or jati, this shloka debunks everything else, because he's talking about the entire fabric of the society, common. If people follow
Yes.
this, then there'll be no more quarrels, even today.
Yeah.
And very few people know the word man comes from Manu, and it is recorded by the Greeks also. Man gradually it flew to the west. Please continue, Dipaliji.
Yeah. So this is so universal, and this is so inclusive definition. So it includes everybody. When we are speaking about ethics, another thing that Indian thought speaks about is vivek. So they say that, every person should have vivek. Vivek is a quality of mind which helps you to differentiate between right and wrong. So what is permanent, what is temporary, what is right, what is wrong, what is correct, what is incorrect, what is lawful, what is not lawful. So all these things, when you are able to tell, only when you are able to tell what is right and what is wrong, only then you will be able to do the right thing, you will be able to choose the right thing. So this is the first step. And the Indian uh, thought, it gives so much importance to vivek. There are so many words even for vivek, like, sat asat vivek. There is sarasar vivek, atmanatva vivek. There is nirakshira vivek. So it is believed that, the swan, rajahounds. So the swan is able to drink only milk. So this, if you keep a mixture of water and milk in front of a swan, the swan will drink only milk. So this is a quality of vivek which should be present in every human, so that a human is able to take up only that which is good from the world.
That's right.
So being able to differentiate what is good and what is bad, and then taking only that what is good. So this is a quality which is utmost necessary for being a human. So
And opposite of that is crow, which of all the good things kept there, it will eat the grass.
absolutely, there is a proverb in Marathi which is "Kavळ्याची चोच उकिरड्यात," that a crow will always go to the garbage.
Yeah,
That's
that's right. So the hunts and the swan and the crow, those two qualities. And normally nowadays people only jump to the bad qualities, and bad, they only highlight the bad. But to develop a quality of a hamsa is the vivek buddhi, isn't it right?
very, very absolutely true. Today, if you open any newspaper, that is like a crow reporting all the things that are happening in the world. And there are so many good things also which are happening. And we really wish we could get up in the morning to read what are the good things that are happening in the world.
That's right.
And that rarely happens.
Yeah, for that people have to stop watching TV first thing in the morning. Yeah, please continue, Dipaliji. Yes.
So, ethics is called Niti Shastra in the Indian context, and it deals with all these things: ethics and morals and values, and how what are the things one should do, what are the things one shouldn't do, what is accepted, what is not accepted. So all these things are covered in Niti Shastra. It also has different names like Niti Vidyan or Achara Shastra, or even it's called Vyavhara Darshan. So we'll take a look at how Niti Shastra is taught in India, or it was taught in India. That would be the better way to say it. So there are lots of books on Niti Shastra. So there are books for the grown-ups, which are like there is the Vedic literature, and then there are Itihas and Puran. Then there are the Dharma Shastra books. So all these books, they speak about Niti Shastra, and then there are separate books for children as well, and they come in the form of storybooks. So we will just take a look at all of these literature and see what ethics are taught. So we start with the earliest literature, the most earliest literature, the oldest literature of humans, and that is the Rigveda. So in Rigveda, there is a concept of Rutam. So Rutam is something that is right. Even the word right comes from Rutam, or the word rhythm, it comes from Rutam. So all the natural laws which follow a rhythm, like there will be summer, and after summer there will be fall, and then there will be winter and spring and summer. This rhythm is Rutam, or even the rhythm of our breathing, or the rhythm of the way we conduct ourselves during throughout the day. If there is a rhythm, that you can say it is controlled by the natural laws. So you are in conjunction with rhythm, with the universal rhythm. So this is what rhythm is. And the Rigveda says that the god of rhythm is Varuna Dev. So what the Varuna Dev does is he keeps a watch on everybody, and he whosoever he says something but he doesn't follow it. Who's somebody who speaks lies, the Varun Dev will punish this person. And here you are seeing a sculpture of Varun Dev. He is holding a noose in his hand. So that is his weapon with which he will punish the people who don't follow the way they speak. So the people who don't have integrity, the people who don't walk their talk, those are the people who will be punished by Varun Dev. So this is a concept from the Vedic literature, and here we see that all of this is about ethics. So this is about like if you are not going to follow the nature's law, if you're not going to take care of the nature, if you're not going to have integrity, then somebody is going to punish you. So this comes from the Rigveda. And then a little after that, we see that the Upanishads, they also speak about ethics. And amongst all the Upanishads, there is the Ishavasya Upanishad. And the first shloka, the first mantra of Ishavasya Upanishad says that Isha Vasyam Idam Sarvam. It says that God resides, Ishwar resides in every being, be it humans, be it animals, be it plants, or even the non-living things. So Ishwar lives in everything and in everybody, and that is why, if we get this experience that Ishwar is living in everyone, automatically the way we behave with others will change. Our attitude towards everybody else will be a changed attitude. It will be so much uh, full of compassion and full of kindness if we actually experience this. And this is what the Upanishads teach. And it also says that one shouldn't take anything that doesn't belong to you. So, whatever you take from the nature, take only as much as you need. Don't take more than what you need. And whenever you want to take something, you will have to give something. So, you have to work for your living. You have to toil for your living. You have to put in some efforts, do something, give something back when you take something from the nature. So, this is where we start seeing the basic teachings of ethics. So, this is one example from the Ishavasya Upanishad. And then there are other Upanishads, like, for example, Mundak Upanishad. It says, Satyameva Jayate, which means the truth will always win. The victory will always be for the truth. So, what this Upanishad actually teaches is that one should always speak the truth and stand by for truth. Or then there is the Taittiriya Upanishad. And this Upanishad says that Anna is Brahma. So if food is God, then we would obviously not waste food. We will obviously not, overeat as well. So one will be very conscious of what you are going to eat. So these are the things which we see in the Upanishads, and they are actually telling us about what your values should be, what your morals should be, how you should behave in this world. And there is this the different darshans. So there is the Yoga darshan, and in the Yoga darshan there are, or it is Ashtanga darshan. So there are 8 limbs of this darshan. Among in these 8 limbs, there are 2 limbs which are the first two, Yama and Niyama, and these speak about how a person should behave in the society, and how should he, what should his internal ethics should be. So on the external ethics, which is Yama, it says that ahimsa satya asteya, which we saw a little earlier, same thing that Manu has said. And Niyama, which is internal ethics, it speaks about shaucha. Shaucha is purity, clarity, cleanliness, hygiene. It speaks about santosh, being content. So having these qualities within you, being happy with whatever you have, being content, and doing tapasya. So basically, one should have discipline. So whatever things that you are doing, you should have discipline in that. And you should also be doing swadhyaya, which is self study. You should always be working in progressing yourself. And there should be ishwar pranidhan. So that is about, like, surrender to the ishwar. So all these things, they create a person who is ethical. So they will ensure that the person who has these qualities, he will automatically be a kind person. He will automatically take care of what uh, others need. He will automatically be generous. So all these things are taught in the various darshanas of Hinduism. And in Hinduism, there are uh, multiple darshan. Amongst them, there is the Jain darshan and the Bauddha darshan as well. And both these darshana, which were established by Mahavir Jain and Gautam Buddha, they also speak about the same 5 things. So these 5 things, we keep on seeing them in every literature, every Indian literature. So we will see that all of them, they speak about ahimsa. So ahimsa, when it means non-violence, it also means, like, uh, going for vegetarian food, vegan food, and satya, again, truth, and not stealing anything, non possessiveness. So, all of these things we will see that they're repeatedly taught by all the different branches of Hinduism. Aditya would you like to add something over here?
Actually, extreme of anything is not allowed in our scriptures, Hindu scriptures. Most of these are very valid points you have taken. And the extreme, like for example, even extreme violence to our body is called ahimsa. It's called hinsa.
Yeah.
So we have to be very careful on that, because there are some people who beat themselves so hard that blood comes out of the body. So the yoga says that anything which is done easily. So most of the yoga exercises, I will say, where it is based on very simple breathing, simple stretching, and that is enough for the body. And maintaining a balance in our eating, sleeping, and all other activities that we do, that is recommended to build an ethical personality. Anything extreme which goes beyond the body may be needed for some things. Like for example, if you have to build your muscles, you have to stretch your muscles to a little more than what you can do, and then you can build it. But that is just to build, expand the capacity of the body. But generally ethics means living in a boundaries, uh, self-created boundaries. Wonderful points you said. On Ishavasyam idam sarvam yatkinchi jagatyam jagat, the tena tyaktena bhunjita, like you should take what is set aside for you, which
Mhm.
is easily obtainable by you without covetousness or trying to acquire somebody else's property. We see nowadays, there is a lot of land capture. Everything else is, nations have that attitude of capturing other people's land. Communities have that attitude, and which is not as per the Shastra. And that's where dharma and adharma definition also comes in. What is adharma and what is dharma? And then the people who are dharmic or following the ethical point of view, in order to preserve that, they have to use a force so that that is not transgressed. And people who cannot protect themselves, others have to step in to protect. So that time they are not transgressing the boundaries. They are that time they are actually following the dharma of protecting the weak. So very beautiful points you've mentioned, Dipaliji. Continue, please.
So, so this dharma and adharma, these are the right things. When ethics are not followed, dharma will have no stand actually.
Right.
And we come to this part, so far we are just looking at the definitions of ethics in various literatures. But then the best source of ethics is through stories. And this is what we see in the Indian tradition, that however difficult a subject might be, however boring it might be, it is taught with examples and it is taught through stories. And when it comes through stories, it becomes so interesting. So we see Ramayana. So we all know this epic, which is written by Valmiki Rishi, and he. This is a story of Sri Ram and his wife Sita. So in this story, we see that both Ram and Sita, they stand courageously in face of every adversity. So Sita is kidnapped by a king, Ravan, and then Ram has to, walk all the way, and then he makes friends with another king, Sugriv, and then he gets an army for himself, and then he goes on a search for Sita. He finds Sita. He builds a bridge on the sea, and then he goes crosses the sea, and there he fights with Ravan, and then he gets Sita back. So this is this whole story of Prince Ram, and in this we see that such uh, difficult circumstances are faced by Ram and by Sita, and yet both of them, they are so courageous. So this is one of the things which the epic teaches us without saying these things, that be courageous. The epic doesn't say be courageous, that is good for every person. It doesn't say that. It just tells the story, and the listener automatically starts seeing all these qualities and starts understanding and imbibing all these qualities. And we see both of them, Ram and Sita, they are optimistic. They know that, the good is going to happen, and they have this hope in their heart. And it is just for that they live, even when the circumstances are really very bad. So we see these qualities in Ram and Sita and in the characters, all the other characters of Ramayana. And from that we learn that what are ethics. For example, ethical courage. We see that Rama's father Dashrath, he uh, he has given a boon to Kaikai, his wife, and with that boon he has to let Shri Ram go into exile for 14 years. And during that time, Dashrath pines for his son Ram and he dies. But then this is described as Raghukula Rita Sada Chali Ai, Prana Jai Par Bachan Na Jai. So even if he has to give up his life for his promise, he does that. He keeps his promise. So these are such wonderful lessons that we get to learn in Ramayana. So these are not just personal ethics, but there are also family ethics, family values which are taught in Ramayana. So we see love and respect. We see forgive and forget. That if your friend, your brother, your sister, your parents, they have done something, they have said something. So forgive and forget. And there is obedience, obey your parents. How is a good father, an example of a good son, example of a good wife, example of a good elder brother, younger brother. All these examples, we see them in different characters of Ram. And because of that, it is not only a very interesting story, but it is also teaching something at through every episode, through every event that is happening in Ramayana. Even when we are looking at ethical leadership, there are so many lessons to be learned from Ramayana, where uh, simple lessons, like if you have to praise your subordinates, you should do that in public. And if you have to rebuke your subordinate, you should do that when you're alone with your subordinate. Or you should give instant feedback, at timely feedback. All these things we see in Ramayana. We see the excellent examples of ethical leadership in Ramayana. So that I spent quite a lot of time on Ramayana, but that Ramayana is one of the epics of India, which is a simple story. And though the story is simple and the story is small, the teachings of Ramayana, they are amazing and they are simply great. Everyone must read Ramayana at least once in your lifetimes. I would really suggest that.
No, actually, in the case of in the last slide, Ramayana, the biggest thing we see that for Sita, Sri Ram searched every single part of the world, and it's like a to find Sita, because that Rakshas, or a person which is lower than human values, he was kidnapping everybody's wives. And so that is also dharma, that is also ethics. To protect yourself is an ethic. It's your responsibility as the head of the family. Like in USA, the first responsibility of protecting the family is with the head of the family, not the
Mhm.
police. That is American law.
Okay.
American,
Okay.
the police is called after the incident to investigate and help if there is a weakness
Mhm.
there. But generally, the first responsibility with the Constitution of US is to protect yourself. And the same is in India, because India is a copy of US Constitution. And that is dharma also. Dharma also says that you should protect yourself from arsonists, from attackers, from kidnappers. This is your responsibility. And where people have to step in, like hoping that somebody else will protect, that is not dharma, you know. But we see the leadership of Sri Ram. People accuse him for many things on ethics, but what he did to find Sita, that is shows how much he loved Sita. Like, he searched every single cave on the earth, every single ocean. And I'm talking about South America, I'm talking about Europe, I'm talking about Yawadweep, which is the Indonesia. I'm talking about Australia. Every single land he served, checked. Yeah. Please continue there. And on the
When,
next slide, yes, please. You want to add something, please?
yeah, when you say that Ram has searched for Sita everywhere, it's like, searching for a needle in a haystack.
Exactly, exactly. You cannot even search for an aircraft carrier. Aircraft carrier is so big, 1,000 feet long. You cannot search it in the world. If it is hidden, you can hide it easily.
And it just shows how much love he had for his wife.
Yes,
And just for that, he goes literally to the end of the world in search of her.
exactly, exactly.
So that is what you said, like, have keeping taking responsibility for yourself.
For yourself, yes, you cannot depend on somebody else for doing your part of the
Mm,
activities. You cannot
right.
expect that somebody else will do yours. And that's why you brought a very good point on Mahabharata, that Gita is all about action, all about action. This is a shloka from Bhagavad Gita.
Yes.
And if you think you are Shrestha means superior, that means you take your own responsibility and you set an example for others.
Absolutely.
Hmm?
Absolutely.
Yes,
So Mahabharata again, it is another epic from India, and it is also itihas. Just like Ramayana, Mahabharata is also itihas. And in Mahabharata, there are so many stories and sub stories, you can say, which come up in Mahabharata. And through the dialogues between the two different characters, we learn about ethics. And the three major dialogues in Mahabharata are, one is called as Vidur Niti. So Vidur Niti is a discussion between the minister Vidur and the king Dhritarashtra. And in that, Vidur tells the king what are the right things to do. He also tells, what are the wrong things. Uh, so just like there in Dasbodh, Murkhanchi Lakshana, where uh, Vidur tells, like, what are the characteristics of a stupid person. So what is the way in which a stupid person will behave. So he tells that only to contrast how a person how a wise person will behave. So he speaks about that. And then there is the advice given by Bhishma, Pitamaha Bhishma, to Yudhishthir. And this advice is about how a king should be. What are the responsibilities of a king? So he speaks about Raja Dharma. And then lastly, there is the discussion between Krishna and Arjuna, and this is Bhagavad Gita. And Bhagavad Gita also, it speaks about ethics, morals, and values, and how a person should live, basically. And when Bhagavad Gita is full of all of these advice, I have just picked up one shlok from Bhagavad Gita, which is around ethics. And this shlok which says, Yad yad acharati sreshthas, the way superior people will act, the way superior people will behave, exactly in the same way everybody else in the society they will behave, they will follow their leaders. And that is why it is necessary that the leaders do take the right action. Leaders always say the right things and leaders behave in the right way. So this is one uh, teaching of ethics from Mahabharata, and which is a very important teaching. Because even today, when we speak about ethics, we say ethics comes from examples. So you have to set up an example for how to behave. And after Mahabharata, we see another great piece of literature in India, and that is Arthashastra. Arthashastra is written by Chanakya or Kautilya, as he is called. One of the, I'm just picking up one shlok from all of these huge pieces of literatures. So this shlok, it's in this shlok, Chanakya says that a king's happiness lies in the happiness of his people. So even if a king doesn't like something, he has to do it if it is for the good for his people, if that is what his people want him to do. So this is a very different definition for how a king should be, how a king should behave. So a king is almost like a puppet in the hands of his subjects. He should do what is good for his people. He should do what is wanted by his people. So this comes from Arthashastra of Chanakya. And then we come to the this body of epics which is called Puran. So in Puran there is so much teaching, not just for the kings but also for the common people. So one of this, and all of this is given through stories. So there is the story of King Rantidev, and in this story, Rantidev is saying a prayer at the end. He says a prayer and he says that I don't desire anything. I don't want a kingdom, and neither do I want a heaven after I die. The only thing that I desire is that I want to remove the misery of all living beings. This is what a king says. This is his goal, and this tells, like, how a king should behave, what the dharma of a raja should be, what are the responsibilities and duties of a king. So here the king is saying that I don't want the riches, I don't want my palace. I don't even want heaven after I die. All that I want is all the living beings in my kingdom. So when he's seeing living beings, he's including not only the men and the women, but he's including all animals and plants as well in his kingdom, and he's taking care of them. So this is what Rajadharma speaks about. And then Puranas also speak about social ethics. So they tell what are the responsibilities of every citizen, what every person should do. So Puranas tell that every common person should plant trees. So there is this shloka, Ashwathamekam Pichumandamekam. So in this shlok, what the Puran tells is that a person who is planting uh, Ashwatha trees and neem trees and mango trees, different types of trees, so 10, 15 trees, then such a person will not go to hell. This person will go to heaven. This is a teaching from the Puran. So the Puran are telling that go and plant trees, build wells, build tanks, ensure that the people what you leave behind, ensure that what you leave behind is continuously going to do something good for uh, the society. So even after you are dead, your work, whatever you have done, if you have planted a tree, that tree is going to give shade. If you have built a water tank, it is going to provide water to the people. And even after your death, your work will continue to give give you punya. So this is what we see in the teachings of Puran. And then when it is teaching all of this, it is giving, it is telling through stories. So there is this story of King Harishchandra, which teaches how to be truthful. And there is a story of King Nala, which speaks about righteousness. And then there is a story of King Shibi, which speaks about how to be a just king. So there are so many stories which speak about sacrifice and valor. So they are teaching all these virtues through stories and making it more and more interesting and easy to remember as well. With that, we come to the children's section. And when we see the Indian concept of teaching ethics, they have different stories for children. That is so interesting. They don't have stories of kings and queens for the children, but they have stories of animals. And these animals, they're talking to each other, they're talking to the children. And through all of those events that are happening in the animal world, what they're basically teaching is niti. They're teaching ethics.
Even Kanika, when he's informing Dhritarashtra, advising Dhritarashtra,
Yes.
he uses the analogy of a mouse and a snake and rats and a
Mhm.
deer and a tiger. So not just for kids, and also
Mhm.
the thing is, the in the Indian context, the real context is taken out. Like for example, the when you're teaching children a niti or vivek buddhi, or
Mhm.
you're teaching a maryada through the stories, The earlier the concept used to be that how they can become stronger in the case of adversary. So right from childhood, like for example, when Pandavas were growing up, these kind of stories were told to them by Kunti Maharani and Dronacharya, and that's how they learned. They became strong fighters.
Yes.
But nowadays, these stories have been modified to such an extent then we bring up our kids in so soft that they're not ready to face the world. So the stories we have to read told with the original logic. Like for example, Dhritarashtra was told the story so that he can come back to, and this is told by Vidura also. Vidur also tells Dhritarashtra similar story, and he asks him to act in a proper way because he
Mhm.
has forgotten. Because why he told the stories of animals and through him, because Dhritarashtra was not understanding other advices given by in the, because he was also a pandit. Dhritarashtra was very very knowledgeable person, but he was told other stories, but he was not getting it. So Vidura used the animals examples and told him a story for bringing the right side of his personality. Right, I mean the correct
Wonderful.
side.
Correct side. Yeah. Wonderful, wonderful that you point that you brought up. That animals are also used in for teaching grown-ups as well. So in the children's section, the most popular stories are the stories of Panchatantra, and there is a frame for the stories. The frame is like there is a king and he has three children, three sons, and they are rather slow and stupid. So he doesn't know how he will, how good kings they will be. So he calls upon Vishnu Sharma, and Vishnu Sharma is a pandit. So he calls upon Vishnu Sharma and says,
That's
like,
the name of
here is my
Chanakya also.
problem. Yeah.
So one thing I see in the picture here, uh, Chanakya was very thin and but very well built. So he was strong. So the I don't know what has happened to in the Amar Chitra Katha, or mostly they show Brahmanas as very weak. But if you look at Madhvacharya, Ramanujacharya, or any of the today's sannyasis also, they're all
Mhm.
very strongly built
Mhm.
because
Yes, yes.
Vyayam was required for everybody, not just for Brahman or
Sure.
Kshatriya or Vaishya.
Right, right.
If you look at Vyasdev, even though Vyasdev is a divine personality, but he was also very well built. Hanumanji was also very well built. So the
Mhm.
concept that meek and humble, which is told to Indians, is not correct because the humble definition is very different. The in English, I can say in one line, to not be anxious for the satisfaction of being honored by others. That is the definition of
Mhm.
humility. And
Yes.
it's not that you're always meek and you're meek and humble in front of saints, like Shivaji Maharaj said. प्राण जाए पर वचन न जाए, that is in Ramcharitmanas. I will, and Shivaji Maharaj was before that, after that, yeah. So that is for saintly people only.
Mhm.
But for others, if they are playing a game, then I'm going to I will, even if I give my vachan, I'll not follow it because they don't deserve it.
Yeah.
Same with the Wali. When Bhagwan Ram killed Wali, Wali was saying, "Why did you kill me from behind the trees?" He said, "You don't deserve. First of all, you are a monkey. You don't deserve it. And I am the king. I have the rule." So many things Sri Ram says in that conversation, which is very, very detailed for us, that where we should apply the logic, because the application will make us stronger and application will make us weaker also. Like you said before, actions define who we are, not words. Hmm? Yep.
And you have pointed so correctly that one has to be well built. We also see that in the example of Ramdas Swami.
Yes, Ramdas Swami,
He is
yes,
well built, and all
very
his
well.
disciples as well.
Correct.
So it is only a Mahavir who can give the teaching of ahimsa.
Exactly. When you have power, like Hanuman, Arjun, Pandava,
Yeah.
people that make Yudhishthira as a weak, but people do not know. The first
Mhm.
thing Pandavas would get up and do is Vyayam. First, they do Sandhya Upasana every morning, and then Vyayam for 1 or 2 hours, do ghadi, teen ghadi, char ghadi, and then they'll go for meeting with people and having breakfast. This is how the what morning schedule used to be. And same with Sri Ram. Sri Ram was a what you call it, if today's world you say it, fitness freak. always preparing vyayam. That's how Hanuman got that habit. And very famous. I really like Baba Ramdev, and Baba Ramdev taught the Hanuman Danda. If anyone is watching, they should do it. And it's a beautiful exercise for the making your body strong, because if the body is strong, mind will be strong, and you will have self confidence also. So our Niti Shastra, whatever the images they may use, like this image is a nice image of a student, but generally the students were advised to do exercise and keep their body fit, because if they are not fit, they cannot serve anybody else.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. The first thing is uh, mind and body, both fit,
Exactly, both fit. And
both
then
fit.
in a physical body, your brains and their organs, their mind is not in the brain, mind is in the whole personality. But if your body is fit, you'll be able to think properly. If you eat properly, you'll be able to think properly. If you think properly, then, and plus you'll have a self-confidence that others cannot hurt you because you're strong. And then you can talk about dharma. These things come later on,
Yeah, yeah.
because first you have to be fit also. So the images have been very carefully made by the colonial masters, and images, like you said in the last time, symbols. If you remember the last show that you did, the symbolism that is shown for Hinduism is by design. They show so that Hindus don't get the strength, and but the dharma practitioners have to be strong, otherwise they cannot
Have to be
help
strong.
others.
Yes, yes,
Just
yes.
like if the ambulance driver or ambulance worker is not fit, how will he carry the patient? Not possible. So if we are fit, then we can help others. Jivan sarthak kari kar parupkar. So first you perfect your own life, then you do parupkar. But if you
Right.
just talk about parupkar but not jivan sarthak kari, then it's just a wordplay.
It's hollow words,
Hollow
empty,
words, empty words, because you cannot help
empty.
anyone. Others know that you need help. So it's like somebody who is weak telling others about exercise. The other person is not going to get convinced, because he says first you need it.
And that is why the teachers were called acharya.
Acharya, that's
Be-
right.
So it is through their own acharan, through their own behavior, through their own dinacharya, they
Yes,
were teaching.
yes. Like sannyas definition is very clear. Krishna says to Arjun, he says that one who has lit no fire, has not done any karma, how can he be a sannyasi? Very simple point. So the sannyas is also based on the karma. So you have to focus on your actions. And we get into, in the WhatsApp world, we immediately start producing judgments on others and sharing. I know there is no other forum to talk. It's people talk, and I have no problem with that. But I'm just saying that before you speak, you have to put yourself in others' shoes. That's niti, and see what other person could have done, and then you criticize, because too much criticism is bad, too much praise is also bad. The Shukdev Goswami says too much criticism means ishalu, too much praise means pakhandi. Both are bad.
Yeah.
Pakhandi means she praises too much somebody else. So we have to avoid all the, like Nilesh always says, vitanda. I call it tarka vitarka, and vitanda is the extreme case of without evidence talking.
Extreme case.
So good points, very good points. Please continue.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So we are in children's section, and here now we are looking at the different ethics that are taught through stories. And there are the stories of Panchatantra. They are very old stories. In fact, there is one Saraswati Sindhu site called Lothal in Gujarat, and over there in excavation, a pot was found, and on that pot, a story from the Panchatantra was painted. So from that, we know that the Indian subcontinent, children have been listening to these stories of Panchatantra for at least 5,000 years, minimum 5,000 years. And they have been popular since those times. And another interesting thing about Panchatantra is that these stories have been translated sometime in 6th century in Persian, and after that they were translated into Latin and other European languages. So there was a time when the stories of Panchatantra were told to the children of Iceland of Britain, of Europe, of Persia, of India, and right up to Indonesia and Cambodia, Philippines as well. So this whole geographical area, children have been listening to these stories, and they are very interesting stories. Like there is the story of monkey and crocodile, where the crocodile wants to eat up the heart of the monkey, and then the monkey does some trick and saves himself. So the it teaches a moral that one should never give up, even in very difficult times. Or there is this story about pigeons and mice, and it speaks about strength and unity and friendship. And there is another story about a Brahmin who has a pet mongoose. And one day, when he sees that the mongoose has some blood on his mouth, he thinks that the mongoose has hurt the baby. So he just kills that mongoose. But then he understands just a little later that the mongoose has saved the baby from a snake bite. And that is why the mongoose had blood on his mouth. So it is teaching that one should think before doing anything. So think before you act. So all such morals, they are taught through stories of animals who are talking to each other, and there are animals who are singing as well. So there is this another book which is called Hitopadesh, and Hitopadesh is also a collection of stories. And what it tells is it gives advice. Upadesh is advice and gives advice for welfare of the reader. So these stories are also very popular. And this is one of the stories from Hitopadesh. It's a story of a tiger and a greedy traveler. The tiger has a golden bangle, and the tiger offers it to the traveler. And that traveler, he is greedy. He simply trusts the tiger and goes to take that bangle. So, anyways, in the end, the traveler loses his life. So, again, there is a moral, something to be learned from this. And that is like, one shouldn't trust a dangerous person, however gentle he might appear to be. So, be very careful. Uh, Understand what is the motive of other people. Similarly, very popular are the tales of Jataka. And these are the tales which have been told by Gautam Buddha to his disciples. And when he is telling these tales, what he is focusing on are the different qualities one should have. So he speaks about gentleness, he speaks about kindness, he speaks about truthfulness, balanced living. So, all these things he is teaching through different examples and different case studies. I always think of all these stories as different case studies. And from here, we go into a different world. And this world is for not for just very small children, but it is for teenagers, you can say. And these are the stories of King Vikramaditya. So Vikramaditya was a legendary king, and there are many stories that are woven around him. These stories of Vikram and Betar, they are a set of stories where these are 25 stories, and in every story, the Vetal, which is a ghost, which is a spirit, it tells Vikram some event that has happened. It tells Vikram a story. And at the end of the story, Vetal will ask him a question. Now, this question is a question which requires good judgment. So he asks this question and asks Vikram for an answer. And Vikram always gives a very different and a very correct answer. So these are very uh, stories which which keep the listener very attentive. And through every answer from Vikram, we learn something new. We learn something about values. We learn something about morals, and something about ethics. Vikramaditya is also a hero in another story, and these stories are the stories called as Sinhasan Battisi. So these are 32 tales, just like the stories of the thousand stories of Arabian Nights. Those are inspired from these stories. So these stories also have a frame, and within that frame, one by one story is born in one story is born in another story. and they go on and on. And every story, it is telling something to be learned. And in every case, it is a story of ethic. It is a story which speaks about some virtues, something that the reader should learn automatically without being told about it. And this is another part which comes in Sanskrit. In the beginning, Adityaji, you spoke about Sanskrit language. And here again, I come to the language. So, anybody who is learning Sanskrit, instead of learning rhymes, what a learner, first thing he learns is Subhashit. And Subhashit are small two-liner shlokas which teach a great meaning, which have a good meaning, and which teach morals, virtues. So here are a couple of Subhashita. I'll just speak about one, which is the last one, Mata Shatru Pita Vairi. This shlok, it says that a that a child's parents are his enemies if they don't teach him, if they don't educate him. So through just one line, it is telling what are the responsibilities of the good parents, how they should behave, what they should do for their child. So all such things we see they are taught through Subhashita very easily. And as you pointed out, Adityaji, earlier, Sanskrit is a language which does sanskar.
Right.
So this is a part and parcel of the language. So anybody who is learning Sanskrit, automatically he starts imbibing all these qualities, and we start seeing uh, a good citizen, which will be created just by learning a language. And then there are so many other ways of teaching ethics. One of the ways is through games. And there is this ancient game from India, which is snakes and ladders. And there are two players, and the player has to roll the dice. And based on what number he gets, his piece will move ahead on this board. And on every square, there is either a virtue or there are bad qualities like disobedience, arrogance, theft. So for every virtue, he will climb a ladder, and for all these bad qualities, the player will have to come back to an earlier square. And the ultimate goal of this game is to reach the last square, which is called as moksha. So this game is called Moksha Patam. And during the British rule, it became snakes and ladders. And then it lost all those virtues and everything that the child should learn. All that remained on that board was snakes and ladders, just that and the numbers. And then there are various traditions as well which teach ethics. And one of the important tradition is the Panchamahayajna, in which every person is taught that he has to ensure that he feeds animals and birds, waters the plant, ensures that anybody who is hungry around him, he has given them food, and only then he will eat, or he will study daily. So all these things he will do on a daily basis. So we see that there are not just books and traditions and customs and stories and games as well, which will teach ethics to an Indian child. So I'm going to stop here, and I want to thank all my friends, Nikit, Geet, Jash, Siddharth, and Jaya, Mihir, and Rutuja, and Shubhankar for their contributions in this presentation.
That was the last slide of the shloka that you showed. Please do send me when you get a chance before this.
Okay.
Subhashita.
Yes. The Subhashita. I will do that. And
Yeah. Thank you so much, Deepaliji. And I think you correctly showed that how ethics we can bring into our lives, and through following all these different things. And I think based on what you showed, because the ancient culture of the world was Vedic culture. There is no other culture before that. So throughout the world, the same stories are there. I have not seen
yes.
the American fables are the same as Panchatantra. Panchatantra may be a recent name, but it doesn't mean that these stories were not taught in Ramayana Kal. Like There were children. They had a bigger population than today's population, and still they were teaching. The children were growing strong, and they had better values. And how would they give the values if they did not have a proper teaching mechanism? So just to say that today the world is civilized, that is the Western viewpoint. According to us, today is Kali Yuga. World is less civilized, and for Western world, this is the civilized because they have seen the worst period of faith-based colonialism. They have seen it worst. The how the church kept Europeans under their uh,
Dark age.
dark age. It was the church which was responsible for that, and they still call the church a savior. Not all of them, few of them. Even in Rome, it is very little respect for the Vatican. Even in Rome, hardly no one wants to go there. It's like a boundary. It's like a small quarter of the town, completely with huge barricades. I don't know what they're protecting. The Indian temples are so open. Anybody can go there. Anybody can talk to anybody, but not in Vatican. Vatican, you need a passport. You need permissions, and there is a guards who are protecting. Nobody can jump in. And one Roman guy told me, one Italian told me, they are protecting all the loot they have done all over the world. That's what a local guy told me. One very educated man. He was the ex-mayor of Rome. So he told me. So he told me that they are protecting the loot that they've done from all over the world, and that's true because inside the Vatican there are museums. And my fear is that if the Hindus don't care about their own culture, they will be in the museum. And you will see once a while you'll go to the Pune Museum and see this is our ancestors. This is how we're going to introduce your children, and that is where it is going to. And so we have to really work hard on it. And for that, we need to set up the ancient history libraries in every district of the India. Every district we need it, so that people go and see how the ancient people lived. Because India is a very old country, a very very old country. Like one of the things I remember, I was listening to Indira Gandhi's visit to President Ronald Reagan. Indira Gandhi was so gracious. She said in the first line, she said, "Dear President, you are a very new country for us. We are a very ancient country. And so our problems are much deeper or more sophisticated than your problems." And this Indira Gandhi said it during that time. And some people may say that, but you have to see it outside the any party affiliation. But we have to understand that this is what she did to Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan's mouth was very small. He was a tall guy, but he felt so small in front of Indira Gandhi. You can see the video. It's available on YouTube. Thank you so much, Deepaliji, for a wonderful session and also ethics. And would you like to summarize it with any few words?
You have summarized it so well, Aditya ji. So I'll just stop over here, and thank you again, and thanks to all the viewers for listening early in the morning. Namaste.
Yeah. Namaste. Thank you all so much for joining. Do comment on the YouTube and let us know your feedback over there. This video will be available for public viewing shortly. Namaste. Thank you.
Thank you.